And speaking of delays, I would like to wish Joby a happy Valentine's Day.
Happy
Um,
Valentine's. Okay. I don't know which profile, which podcast we're on,
Salika
but
is more drunk than I am right now. Good Lord. What am I kidding?
welcome to the Hoops HD Report, everybody. It is Monday,
Happy
February 23rd.
Valentine's Day.
Happy February 23rd. I'm your host, Chad Schroeder. We've got John Teitel and David Griggs up here with me, John Salika and Joby Fortune down below. And we've got a lot to get to, a lot of big games this past weekend, a lot to go over. But I thought we would start the show actually going back to the beginning of the weekend, which started off with the NCAA Tournament Selection Committee revealing their top 16 seeds. I'm going to throw the reveal up here on the screen for a second. And I know it already has vastly changed because Michigan played Duke, because Arizona played Houston, but
Vanderbilt lost.
Vanderbilt lost, and it's already been shuffled, and we already don't agree with it. But Titel, as a committee guessing expert, was there anything that surprised you in what they did, or anything that you heard during the show?
Yeah, I mean, I still can't believe Iowa State was a one seed, frankly, Chad. And with all the shakeups, maybe that's going to turn out to be the case because the Big 12 is getting beaten up left, right, every which way. But no, for the most part, I think it's accurate, both locations and seeds. There's a couple I could quibble with, but again, it's a snapshot in time, which, as you said, the snapshot is over.
Yeah,
The
and
love for Vanderbilt is still in force, even though they're about 2 games behind most of the rest of the conference.
I don't think that the Vanderbilt is going to stay there as they
Yeah.
continue to lose games. But Joby, did you see anything that made you reevaluate anything in the J and G when you saw these
Iowa
reveals?
State, without a doubt. Iowa State was sixth on the JNG at the time behind Houston. And that was the other thing is it was clear they said UConn was a step ahead. It's that yes, they mentioned the head-to-head in the interview between Iowa State and Houston. That's a big deal. But it was the fact that UConn was squeezed between the two. It wasn't like, oh, a coin flip and we're going to make the call on the head to head. It was they saw a difference, and that was one big change
Well,
from the JMP
I'll
that
tell
I
you something.
saw.
If I could jump in here, Joby, what I thought I really heard was that they said Houston and Iowa State were back to back at one point, and Iowa State was above them. And then UConn loses the game to Creighton, and they drop. And it had been UConn 4, Iowa State
Mhm.
5, and that was what I kind of heard. And they didn't reevaluate the Iowa State Houston argument, I guess, at that point.
Yeah, and they had already determined it. I think now they will be back to back again, but I think Houston has the advantage on their seed list because I presume after Iowa State's loss that they fall a step behind those other two. But it does seem that they were grouped together, and the groupings the committee did, at least as it was explained, I thought were pretty strong. You know, I like, you know, I think you're going to have to watch the Gators, but they gave the Gators a 9. Some dropped the Gators to like the bottom of the 3 line. And I'm glad to see the committee realizes that the most likely candidate to pop into the top 2 as they set is Florida because I think Florida's got it's their number 9 with a bullet to use the old top 40 saying.
Um, in the chat, which our audience can't see, we have the question, can Houston be placed in the South region? And the answer is they can. One of the things,
Even as a two seed, not
yeah,
just
even
as the one.
even as a 2 seed. Now, I know region balance is something to keep in mind. Why in the world would it seems like the South region is the third place that UConn would like to go behind DC and Chicago. Why would they send them to the South as the number one overall 2 seed? That doesn't make any sense
I
unless it was
believe
a
it.
regional balance thing.
There is region balance because you remember Chicago and DC are number teams number 1 and 2,
Yeah, so
which we
they can't go to Chicago because the 1 and 5 can't be in the same one. That's actually, but they could go to DC and as
I,
the
I believe, Griggs, I actually heard that they swapped UConn and Illinois because of region balance. So that did happen, actually.
okay. Um, yeah,
And the
it
big
just seems
swap
like
obviously was Michigan State. and Virginia was the one they announced on the TV show.
Yeah, but there was a second that was announced by David Warlock on Twitter afterwards.
Okay.
So
And
Yeah.
also keep in mind this year, in the past, like you couldn't have a variance of more than like five spots when you add up all the seeds. This year they did actually add it to a 6 point variance. So to
Yeah.
even then have potential region imbalance would have been saying something.
Right. And if you look at the other tournaments and by the other sports, basketball, men's basketball travels more than any of them. And the reason they're making these concessions isn't to help teams out, it's to keep the cost of travel down because the NCAA is paying for it. That's,
let's get to the court.
yeah.
And let's start things off in the ACC, where right before we came on, we just saw the Carolina win over Louisville. But Titel, I want to actually start with you on not quite the team you want to talk about. We'll get to that one in a minute, but the game I got highlighted there, Duke, Michigan, because you were there, and your thoughts on what you saw on Saturday in this great matchup between the top two teams in the nation. Two of the top
Sure,
two teams in the nation. Two of the
I'll
top.
take you through the day. So I woke up and walked down a few blocks to the arena in the morning for college game day. I found out later, I got in at around 9:15, no line, but there were already plenty of people there. I ended up in the 15th row. I heard later that some people had gotten there at 8 a.m., waited an hour just to get in when the doors open at 9. Their benefit being that they were in the front row and were on TV a lot, which is fine. Um, it was unique in that usually it's at a home team's gym and they'll do some interaction with the home team players and coaches and stuff. But because this was a neutral site and the game was at night, they actually held open practices. I believe Michigan was first and Duke was second, if I recall. And so the fans, instead of just sitting there like during commercials, twiddling their thumbs, could see like Cameron Boozer like putting up threes and like Jackson Lindeborg like working on his jumper. So like that was neat. And then came back at night. Well, went to watch the Arizona Houston game, which we'll get to later at a bar, and then came back at night to watch the big game. They sat me in about the 1500th row up high, which was not fun, but it's one of the biggest regular season games, if not the biggie this year. So I get it. I'm not CBS or ESPN and stuff. And so I got to go down afterwards and go to the press conferences. And I got to see some NBA guys who were sitting courtside. And the game itself was pretty great, back and forth throughout. Both teams throwing haymakers. The Stars playing like stars. Boozer almost had a triple double. Lindeborg scored 16 in the first half. Very competitive, and I would not at all be shocked one bit if this is a preview of the national championship game.
I wouldn't
Yeah.
either. And it was a unique game. We typically, I mean, we have a lot of showcase games during the out of conference portion, and they're at neutral sites. There's dozens of them. But for this to be played at the time of year it was, and to have the high caliber programs that were in it, uh, I was going to save this for maybe a final thought someday, but I'll just go ahead and real quick. Do you think it would be good if like they arranged for out of conference weeks or whatever throughout January and February, maybe 1 week each month, where you could have these showcase games like this? Because this took a lot of agreement. The Big Ten and ACC schedule makers had to agree to let them have that game off or day off.
I think Griggs, honestly, in my opinion, is the fact that these teams were two of the top teams, three teams in the nation going into the game. That's what made this
Yeah.
story, this narrative that you want to push here, actually for the first time in almost
Long,
forever,
the last
actually become one, because there's always been a random non-conference game in January, February. We saw a couple last week even. I mean, but who cares about Memphis and Utah State? But when it
right.
became Duke and Michigan, that's what pushed the
The
narrative.
the
So.
biggest the one that I can remember that I think was as big or maybe bigger than this one, and we're talking 15 years ago. Stalika will know the exact year. It was when they turned Elvis's house blue, the Tennessee Memphis 1 versus 2 game in Memphis. It was phenomenal.
I'll tell you what, first of all, welcome Rocco Miller to the show from Bracketeer.org. He just jumped in here. We are just talking about our first conference of the night here in the ACC. But Joby, before we get to Rocco, I wanted to go to you, talk about your Virginia Hoos, who had a pretty nice week, including that
It,
hard-fought win over Miami.
it was a great game, to be honest. And I actually think that game tells more about Miami than it does Virginia. Virginia is put him up, put him down. You know what you're getting. Stalika, for those listening, the reason he wished me a happy Valentine's Day is because Virginia beat Ohio State on Valentine's Day.
Oh,
That would be, and so for those
oh my
Stalika's
God.
likes and dislikes, it has nothing to do with a nice box of chocolates he's giving me. The but
And Joby's frozen. And we're going
this
on and
is a
on
team
about Valentine's. Okay.
Yeah, Joby, we're having a little audio problems with you
that
right now.
the
Okay.
Virginia's a solid four seed, but the real team to look at is Miami. Miami is extremely interesting as a team. They have a very high end level of players with Renault, Donaldson, Valentine. They've got a very good core that is extremely dangerous. They are right now very much headed towards that 8-9 game. I think most people bracket matrix has them there. I think most would agree that's kind of the range. If I'm a one seed, that's not the team I want to play because there is that high end talent that could, on a given day, take you out. Donaldson alone can just take over a game if need be. However, if I'm a 9 seed playing 8 seed Miami, I couldn't ask for a better team because of their lack of depth. And so you could also get, I think the range is there. So yeah, Miami would be a dangerous team to play if in the round of 32. I just don't know if they'll get there because they're playing a quality opponent in that first game.
Absolutely. Rocco, now that you're here, why don't we talk a little Carolina, the game we just saw here? Held on, worked big and held on over Louisville, and Louisville just can't seem to get a road win, can they?
Not any road win of significance, Chad, and that continues forward. Yeah, it was an interesting game. I thought Louisville started hot, built a little lead early, real early, and by halftime, that had evaporated. Carolina went to the half with a 1 point lead, came out of the half in full control, built a double-digit lead pretty quickly, and Louisville actually was up by 10 early in the first half. So there you go. But yeah, it was. Louisville just looks different on the road. They don't have that next gear, especially in these tournament level road games. Obviously, I saw when they came to California and won by a million, but we don't know if Cal's a tournament team yet. Carolina certainly is, and I thought Seth Trimble was the story. I mean, he was just red hot. Finishes the game with 30 points, goes 11 for 16 from the field, had 4 assists to go with that, and a key steal. So. Um, Pretty interesting because obviously Wilson's still out for Carolina. Sounds like based on the tweets I saw tonight, he's probably out until the Duke game, if not later on. And so that's really important for them to show the committee they can win these types of games without him. They might be evaluated as such.
An interesting game next for Louisville. Stalika, you talk about unstoppable object, immovable force. I kind of guess this is a stoppable object, movable force. Louisville can't win on the road. Clemson can't beat anybody.
Well, I'd also alluded to that in my final thought last night, where it looks like Clemson's about to pull off a potential Clemsoning themselves, considering they had like two rough games, not to mention a home game against Georgia Tech they could easily lose. But and then again, when you look at a team like a Louisville, for example, that's going to be another team that is going to be a little desperate to stop the bleeding themselves. However, I don't know how many more chances they're going to get as far as getting a potential road win against a team that's going to be in our NCAA tournament field. Now, you look at Clemson, you never know what you're going to get at North Carolina, but 99.9% of the time, it's going to be a loss.
Yeah. One of those Clemson losses, Titel, this past week was the home loss to Florida State. I know you had a few thoughts on the Knowles, actually.
Didn't think I'd have any thoughts on the Knowles after Valentine's Day, frankly, but at age 35, new first year coach Luke Lukes, the youngest head coach in D1, he was doing a great job of proving my theory that things do not end well when your coach is a rookie. He had a 5 game losing streak in non conference play, then started 0-5 in conference play, but he seems to be getting the hang of things. They've won 7 of their past 9, the 2 losses by 3 points to SMU and UVA. Still don't know how they're doing it. They take a ton of threes, 32 per game. That's seventh in the nation and they don't make a high percentage, just 32%, which is around 300th in the nation. but they've piled up too many losses to get an at-large bid. I think everybody would admit that. They absolutely have a chance to win out and steal a top nine seed in the conference tourney, and that would force a bubble team to play a very uncomfortable game on Tuesday of championship week. The star of the show, Jacksonville transfer Robert McRae V. He was an All A-Sun player each of the past 2 years. He could very well be All ACC this year. 16 points, 6 assists per game.
It's a
Uh,
shame that Louisville can't arrange a trade with Florida State to take on some of their best road wins. Maybe they could offer some NIL draft picks in the future.
yeah. Florida State doesn't have a tournament level profile, but on the court for the last couple of weeks, they've looked like a tournament level team, just to kind of follow up on what Titel has said. So how do you evaluate, question, I guess, for Titel and Rocco, like Miami, if they go to Florida State and win, is it a win against a non-tournament team, or is it a win against a team that was playing really well at the time and they get more credit for it? And I hope if the committee's paying attention, the answer is the latter, but I kind of wanted to get your all's thoughts on that as committee guessing experts. I know how I would evaluate it.
I will quickly defer to Rocco. I would say the only thing they care about is amongst the things they care about is the net number. I don't care if the team's a bubble team or in or out. I want to see the quality of the victory, right, Rocco?
Yeah, I would agree for the most part. Obviously, right now it's a quad one game. If Florida State can stick in that top 75 on the road, so much of that will have to do with the last three games after the Miami game. Florida State's got to go to Georgia Tech and Pitt, two bad teams in the league, and they'll have to hold the bar in those two games. Otherwise, they will fall. And then they host SMU late. So sometimes when a team like this has an upstart turnaround to their season, it can sometimes take one loss to start a new 3 or 4 game losing streak. We just don't know. There's so many new parts with Luke Laux, and but obviously playing very well lately. It's impossible to know until we see it play out.
Let's take a quick look at the rest of the upcoming schedule here. We already discussed the couple of games, but huge games tomorrow night with the NC State Virginia game.
Woohoo!
SMU has the Stanford Cal road trip, which is probably the easiest West Coast team to do on the West Coast road trip because I don't know it's that much further to Cal Stanford versus coming into some of these East Coast teams they have to play. Uh, and huge one though, Joby on Saturday. Virginia's at Duke.
Yeah,
Circle this.
that's a huge game for Virginia in the seed element. Virginia only has 3 losses, and they have a number of good wins, but no elite win. No win is often said against a fellow protected seed right now, especially one on the road. You all of a sudden, if by some miracle Virginia pulls that out, and then as well as NC State tomorrow, you're looking realistically. That's a 2 seed. That's a 2 seed resume at least.
Yeah, if they do
That's an
all that.
ACC. That's an ACC tournament 1 seed also over Duke, by the
Right,
way.
right. Assuming you win out
But
the
you
at
went
home
out, yeah.
against Wake and Virginia Tech, which I would hope they would in that case. But yeah, that I mean, in Virginia now it's a long way to get to that, and it's a big task. But you pull the double, you wind up, and this is Pollyannish maybe, but you wind up 29, 30 and 3, 31 and 3 with a double in the ACC and a win over Duke in Durham.
They're going to make the field.
I mean, I mean, yeah, the thing is, a lot rides on that. If they lose it, well, then probably, and they win out the games they're supposed to win, then the 4 line remains where they probably are. But Virginia has the season in front of them, but they got to beat NC State tomorrow night first.
Yeah, that's a potential trap game, by the way, tomorrow
Yeah.
night.
Oh, exactly. Yeah, it very much is. But Virginia has played. If they play like they've played this year, they should win it. By 5 to 10 points.
All right, let's. We're definitely running behind, running slow here, though the ACC deserved a little extra talk this week. But let's jump over to the Big 12, where Houston and Kansas are playing as we record this, with a Houston 15-9 lead, actually, as we record. But Rocco, let's start with the other big game on Saturday. Arizona goes into Houston and becomes the first team since the beginning of time, I think, to win in Houston or something like that.
Feels like it, right, Chad?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, I mean, kudos to Arizona. I feel like so much talk was going on at the end of last week, especially with the bracket reveal Saturday morning about Houston, figuring to win that game with Koa Pete being out. but I think they forgot to talk to Arizona about that because the Wildcats, they showed a level of toughness without Pete that was required obviously for the win. But Anthony Del Orso, man, he really stepped up. Got 34 minutes, a much larger role than he's had throughout this year. Not only did he get the minutes, but he put up 22 points off the bench and had four massive steals. That was the difference in the game, you could argue, but I also think Arizona early and often established the lead. They got down just barely in the middle of the second half and then came back with a vengeance. They had an older, more veteran team without one of the freshmen and used that to their advantage. They played a sturdier level of defense than their season average, holding Houston to 66 on the road. And you could look at Emmanuel Sharp's line was awful. He was 2 for 11. That was a huge difference in the game as well. So kudos to the Arizona defense, the rebounding, and the execution because they virtually only used six players regularly. Nelson and Gui got in a little bit, but it was mainly the starters plus Del Orso in that effort, and that is a testament to their toughness and their depth.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, I think a lot of people were down on Arizona. You're absolutely right about that, Rocco. But my God, let's look at the two games they lost. Texas Tech in overtime and at Kansas in a game where like it was close all the way throughout. It wasn't like Kansas blew them out. Those aren't exactly easy games to win. I think out of the 365 teams, 362 of them would have also lost both of them. It's not like that set them back. I still think. And I know on the show last night, I was the only one that Arizona is the overall number one seed right now. I think they got the best profile and the best team.
Well, we'll see how it plays out. If Joby's team could win in Duke, they will be the number one team. But Joby, actually, let me go to you for another team that had a big win this weekend. BYU, who we would start, especially with the injury to Saunders, we were starting to really doubt them. They take care of the Iowa State team that had just found out they were a one seed
Yeah,
potentially.
I'm wondering if Iowa State was reading their press clippings a little bit.
Mhm.
But BYU, we had throughout the process, whether you're looking at bracket matrix, the J&G, the Hoops HD, BYU was consistently third, fourth, third seed, fourth seed, and all this stuff. And then they hit just an awful stretch, and you can see it on their schedule. And now those are decent teams the most, though, besides Oklahoma State. um, you can understand those losses, but it's still the quantity just weighed them down. And this Iowa State win completely may have righted the ship. They're still, they sunk out of a protected seed level because of what they did, but they stopped the bleeding and they could be very dangerous come March.
Another team that stopped their bleeding this week, Salika, was UCF. This team had been, they had a 3 game winning streak, pick up home win over of a bubblicious TCU team, and somehow found a way to hold off Utah on the road and get that win as well.
It was starting to look almost hemorrhaging when you consider a couple of their losses came against Cincinnati and West Virginia. However, they did avoid a potential disaster at Utah, so at least they did survive in that game. And then you look at the TCU game, which is also important because the Horned Frogs are getting closer and closer to the bubble, and now with a chance to further solidify themselves at BYU. That's a game that would be a nice one to get, but you look at some of their games that were prior to that, Baylor and Oklahoma State, and even the road game at West Virginia, they can't afford to slip up against those teams at this point, especially when you go back to the TCU profile you had up. The
Yeah,
Horned
back and
Frogs are
forth.
going to be right on their tail because now they get two games that are absolute must wins. And while Texas Tech would be a very difficult one to pull off, even though they're going to be
Mhm.
down themselves because of injury, that would be a very big one for TCU and Cincinnati. That's another game you have to win. And as we discussed last night, Cincinnati's suddenly become a more difficult team to prepare for.
Well, what a great lead in, Tytel.
Yeah.
How about Cincinnati?
Nice segue, John. When Coach Westmiller started at UNCG, he had five losing seasons in a row, but they didn't give up on him. And then he had 5 seasons in a row with 21 plus wins, and he got the job at Cincinnati. He had winning seasons in each of his first 4 years, but 15 days ago he woke up with a record of 11 and 12, so I assume that winning streak was coming to a close. Not so fast, my friends. Bearcats are on a 4 game winning streak, including a 20-point home win over UCF and the impossible 18-point road win at Fog Allen Fieldhouse to improve to 15 and 12. And with JT Toppin out for the year with a torn ACL, the road game at Texas Tech on Tuesday is looking much less impossible. It's a shame they're only shooting 68% from the free throw line because they've lost 5 games by 5 points or fewer. And for those of you who try to figure out which teams are at full strength this time of year, guess how many of their 27 games this season have seen both McDonald's All-American Sean Abayev and previously dismissed Jizzle James both play more than 20 minutes in the same game? Zero.
Wow.
Well,
Um,
they're on a roll.
uh,
They're playing really well. It might be too little, too late, but they, if they somehow, as you say, win a game that is now less than impossible, or not quite whatever. It's not impossible for them to win tomorrow. How I liked how you said it, but forgot the verbiage you used. Do we start really having to look at them? Because look at their metrics. Aside from their record, they're not that bad.
those are
You know,
borderline bubble.
yeah.
The WOB, which is a big factor for the committee, Rocco, as you know, that's still at 65. They gotta find a way to push that up. Winning at Texas Tech could really help do that, though.
Yeah, make them a little interesting, no doubt, but they can't get back the Eastern Michigan game, and that is
Mhm.
a death nail right now. That lost, not, didn't even just lose; they lost by 8
Keep
to
it
the
on the screen.
Eagles. But yeah, and I mean they still have to play BYU at home. Could be tough. Oak State at home and at TCU. Also, those are opportunities. If they finish with an 8 game winning streak, which is possible, they are playing very well, and they've had a top 10 defense all year long with that elite rim protection of theirs. But yeah, I'll believe it when I see it.
I should also add that if they lose the home game against Oklahoma State, they'll pull off the same feat against TCU and have wins and losses in all four quads.
Yeah.
Uh,
Well,
There you go.
they beat Texas Tech and BYU. I think the WAB will take care of itself.
I,
Let's
I
be
get,
very blunt.
Griggs, let me throw one last little question out here. It's very early in the game. Kansas is down 6 as we record this at home to
Yeah.
Houston. I, is there a chance we're going to see the Jayhawks lose back-to-back games at home? I mean,
Yes.
has that ever
They,
happened? Ever?
I,
I don't know.
I think it has at some point. They've been playing basketball there for over 100 years, but yeah, it could happen. The Cincinnati game was a little bit inexplicable. Losing at home to Houston, while it's a game they certainly can win, it's also one Houston can win. Houston is really, really good, and I know that they lost at home to Arizona, but they're still really good. They're ranked fifth, and they're not overrated.
Uh, Big weekend coming up, by the way, in the Big 12. Kansas at Arizona, Texas Tech at Iowa State. There's your
Yeah.
top 4 teams going head to head against, or 4 of the top 5 teams, I guess, going head to head. Houston playing Colorado in there as well. That doesn't really matter much. And by the way, let's throw in Iowa State at Arizona next Monday as well. Titel, busy week for your team.
It is, Chad. It's a busy month, frankly. Like, it's just a series of ranked teams against ranked teams. I still can't believe we won in Houston because, as I said the other day, nobody, and I mean nobody, wins in Houston. They had lost 7 games at home in 8 years, and they did it without Pete and Aristode. Now I hear that Delorso's a questionable for Baylor along with Pete. So, like, nothing would surprise me anymore because we're playing so far above anything I expected.
Let's jump over to the SEC. Uh, where Rocco, the continuing story is these red hot Florida Gators. I know, South Carolina, Ole Miss isn't much of anything, but uh, I don't know when or if this team is ever going to lose again at this point.
Yeah, I mean that would have been their easiest week of the year, playing
Mm,
South Carolina and Ole Miss.
mm,
So it felt good for the Gator boys staying hot. But I think they could work. It was good. It's good for them because they can tweak some of the things and work on some of the things that they've been lacking. I noticed Isaiah Brown got a lot more time last week. That was good for the depth. He's essentially their eighth man. Urban Klavzar continues to shoot the ball pretty well. Went 4 for 5 from three down in Oxford. Boogie Fland even made a three. God forbid, he actually made three of them. in the Ole Miss game. So yeah, I think that's the key. We all know the front court's probably the best in the country, and they didn't overwhelm these two opponents, but they already broke the Colonial Life Arena record by beating South Carolina by 47 earlier this year, and they didn't have much to prove against the Gamecocks the second time around. So yeah, hold and serve, and just waiting for some teams in the ones and twos to keep losing so they can get up there with them.
Yep. Joby, one of the other stories in this conference was Auburn, especially this Auburn Kentucky game with a
That's
very
it.
controversial foul call to end the game that
Yeah,
gave it to Auburn.
it was controversial, but let's look at the big picture. It still is going to go down as a W, and Auburn needed it. If you look, Auburn was one of those, one of those teams that was shrinking like week by week. They at one point we were talking them six, then it was seven, now eight, now nine, and at one before the game against Kentucky, the J&G had dropped them to an 11, like top of the 11 line, not Dayton, but 11. And so they needed that win against Kentucky like you cannot believe. And maybe the question of foul call was the SEC gods saying, we need more units for our conference." And so, because Kentucky's fine, Kentucky will be fine. They're in the top half of the field, but Auburn really needed that. They had kind of felt disjointed, to be very honest, ever since obviously it started the Tennessee game, but really Vanderbilt at home was the one that kind of was like, oh, that's one you, if you're a team, you gotta kind of pull that one off at home. Um, Alabama's weird because of the Iron Bowl stuff, but Vanderbilt's the one you gotta have. And so the fact that we're in this tailspin and then we're able to stop it against what is a solid Kentucky team, a Kentucky team that's playing a lot better. That stops the bleeding. They're not safe, by the way. They're not out of the woods because while they played, look at their remaining schedule. Um, I'm not expecting them to beat Alabama, who I think is the threat to the protected seed
I think they need to win
line
those other three.
of there, but they have to win the other three.
At
Like
Oklahoma, not
they,
easy.
without beating Alabama on the road, you kind of gotta win if you because even though they beat Kentucky, they're still roaming around that 10 seed line.
Yeah, Kentucky's lost three straight now,
Yeah,
and
Griggs, I want to ask you about them. Kentucky, they're playing a lot better, but they lose at Florida. They lose at the conference game at Auburn. The home loss at Georgia this week also.
yeah,
Big week ahead from them. They've got
I,
a
I
must-win game
think
at
it
South
is.
Carolina.
This is a weird thing to say. That the game at South Carolina is probably their easiest remaining game, maybe even including who they end up facing in the SEC tournament in their first game. They got to win that one. They've lost three in a row. If they lose that one, it's conceivable that they'll lose the other three. I don't. I think they will. I think they're going to get Vanderbilt at home. I don't think they're going to beat Florida, and Texas A&M is a lot harder to go there and win than it is to go to South Carolina and win. They need that South Carolina win just to kind of get a win.
Quick note for people that are looking at some of these team sheets. Every single team tonight seems to have a projected J&G seed at 16. That's my fault. I was doing some work in the workbook before we started, and I screwed something up. So please ignore those during this show tonight. I know Salika wants to attack me for that. But Titel, let me ask you about another team that
Joey,
has
are you drunk?
gave everybody a 16 seed, including
Yeah.
Florida. Uh, Titel, how about Tennessee? That win at Vanderbilt really
Woo!
put this team onto the map here.
Yes, so my preseason Final Four picks of Gonzaga, Houston, Purdue have all looked solid the whole season long. My pick of the Vols was looking frankly misguided a month ago. They started 2-3 in conference play, but I suppose there's a reason that Rick Barnes has made the Elite Eight in each of the past 2 years and has the most wins of any active D1 coach not yet in the Hall of Fame, 854 and counting. They've won 8 of their past 9, just a 3-point loss at Rupp Arena. They're tied for second place in the conference with Arkansas and Alabama. The closing stretch includes road trips to Missouri and South Carolina and tough home games against Alabama and Vandy. They're known for their usual stellar defense. They've only been decent this year, but they're also hitting the boards. They're only allowing 19 defensive rebounds per game. That's number one in the country. And they have one of the best inside outside combos of anybody. They got 6'10 McDonald's All American Nate Ament, whose favorite player, Kevin Durant, played at Texas for, yes, Rick Barnes. and 6 foot tall Maryland transfer Jacoby Gillespie. He grew up 70 miles away from campus in Greenville, Tennessee. Those two are combining for 36 points, 9 boards, 8 assists, and 3 steals per game.
And on the pace for a 4 seed is maybe even a three if they get red hot.
Sure, I mean, I'll defer to Rocco and Joby, but like in the SEC with so many tier one wins, I assume you could easily end up with a three, if not a two, if you win out.
Looks like Joby has him as a 16 seed.
Again, Griggs, we're ignoring that tonight. Rocco, what's the ceiling for the Tennessee team on the
Well,
seed line?
they can still sweep Alabama.
Yeah,
They get them at home this Saturday. A
and sweep
road win at
Vanderbilt.
and sweep Vanderbilt and get a good win at Missouri tomorrow, and go deep enough in the SEC tournament, at least make it to Saturday. They should be able to play their way to a three. They're already a four this morning on my site. So yeah, I mean, I think there's a path. I don't think they can get above a three.
And Chad, I have them at 18, right behind Alabama, who's now 4, Vanderbilt, who's the top 5. You beat them, you're in protected seed land by default. And so they definitely, and those were great wins that will propel them versus your Michigan States, your Virginias, et cetera, if you want to jump them.
Salika, I think we
Yeah.
got one more game to discuss. It's going back almost
Uh-oh.
a week now.
Oh my God, the audio. My ears are bleeding. Anyway, how
I'll go
about
ahead and take over here while Chad fixes his audio set for the 100th time. This was a game where Arkansas actually jumped out by double digits at halftime. First 4 minutes, it looked like the Hogs were going to run away with this one, but about midway through the second half, Alabama suddenly hits 9 or 10 straight shots, and they were able to force it into overtime. Eventually, a second overtime. Darius Acuff Jr. ended the game with an eye-popping 49 points, but somewhere along the line he needed to crack 50, I guess, if Arkansas was going to end up winning this game, but it ended up being a badly needed game for Alabama to maintain their status as a 5 seed and potentially climbing up to a protected seed.
Am I back, first of all?
yeah,
Yes.
You
you
are.
sound a little distant, but yeah, you are back.
Okay, good. Little audio problems, but hopefully you all can hear me now. I think this is where we're going to be the rest of the season. I've got headphone problems that just will not cure themselves. Let's take a look at the upcoming schedule, though, in the SEC. Tennessee and Missouri coming up here. Florida at Texas.
Big game
Uh,
for the Horns in that one, yeah. That's a big one for Missouri. So some bubble teams hosting some big teams at home.
Throw in there some huge ones here on Saturday. Arkansas, Florida, Alabama, Tennessee, Vanderbilt at Kentucky, A&M and Arkansas, Georgia, Vanderbilt also on Wednesday. There's a lot of big games this week in the SEC, Griggs.
Yeah, there really are. A&M maybe swinging over their head. God, they've been sort of in a tailspin. Still inside the bubble, but not as good as I thought they were a few weeks ago.
Let's jump over to the Big Ten Conference. And Joby, why don't I start with you? Interesting week right here at the top here with Michigan. They go to Purdue and win. Obviously, they lose the Duke game. We discussed that one earlier.
I mean, come on. You lose what, as we said earlier, and I think it's very viable that this could be a national title game in a great game. I don't. If anyone says, well, Michigan, what's
I'm
wrong
still
with
not
that?
sold on them.
Yeah, I just love this Michigan team. I think they could still wind up, depending. I mean, now Duke has the advantage over them, and certainly John's Wildcats have a very good case to be made. But I really like this Michigan team long term. The win at Purdue is a great example because Purdue had played pretty well up to that point as well. And then Purdue just obliterated Indiana on Friday night basketball. But Michigan, it's not just the fact they've put together a good resume, in my opinion. It's how they are playing. I know we don't like to talk about the eye test a lot, but eye test wise, this team just goes out
Yes.
and takes care of business.
They
And
do.
I just love that about them. They needed that Duke loss, I think. Sometimes you can reset. We'll see how they play going forward. And if all of a sudden that Duke's, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger sort of thing, if they react in that way, this could be your national title winner.
I loved that game. Duke, neutral floor, wild atmosphere. Tytel was there. It was just a great game.
Yeah. Let's, Rocco, let me go to you. You're our West Coast guy here, and UCLA and USC both had interesting weeks. Uh,
Yeah,
your thoughts on both of them, maybe?
Interesting.
sure.
What was interesting? Tell us, Rocco. What was interesting about UCLA's week?
Let's start there. Good idea.
Yeah,
Well, obviously there was a lot of side chatter about the way their Michigan trip ended, getting blown out of the sun or into the sun, however you say that, twice in the great state of Michigan, and some snappy interviews by Mr. Cronin. But it started just as ugly in Westwood this past Saturday. They were down 33 to 10, Chad. The game was over. They were
I
blown
turned it off.
out.
I turned it off for an hour and just happened to see that it was got close and I turned it back on.
But they chipped away the final 30 or 28 minutes and somehow got that thing to overtime eventually, where of course Illinois once again had a chance to put them away in OT. But Donovan Dent gets the ball, goes coast to coast, and I think even almost the same amount of time as Tyus Edney. Kudos to Tim Brando. Before anybody could even say it, Brando said it instantly on the spot. Shout out to the Hall of Famer Tim Brando for that. But Donovan Dent, 15. Not only did he have the game-winning basket, but he had 15 assists. I loved him at New Mexico. He's gotten a bad rap the first few months at UCLA, but I think he made up for it with a huge win against UCLA and a heroic, memorable moment there. It's really interesting because UCLA right now, they've solidly played 9 games against the NCAA tournament field. Their only 2 wins were the Billadunians game, where Bilodeau hit the game winner against Purdue, right? Basically at the buzzer. And then they get a buzzer beater in Illinois. So without those 2 miracles, they're 0-9 against the field.
and
So
nowhere near the field.
right. The other side of the city has the Trojans, and it's collapsing quickly. And a home loss to Oregon. I know they have Nate Biddle back, and they're a little bit better, but they still don't have Shellstad. It's a bad Oregon season without Shellstad there, and you just can't take a home loss to Oregon, not this year. And
I'll
and
tell
they
you, I'll tell
did,
you,
and they did.
Rocco, if but for that miracle game against Troy, this team would be nowhere near the bubble right now.
Well, if they didn't have the road win at Wisconsin too, like they were down pretty big in that game, that's a really big resume win for USC. And Wisconsin's moving up the chart. But here's the kicker: USC UCLA still happens twice. We got the first one coming up tomorrow, and then the finale will be at USC of the season. Plus, USC hosts Nebraska, and they go to Washington, which does count as a quad one win, believe it or not, if they can win there. So we'll find out a lot more. I know the USC injury issue, but as a Washington Husky, I don't feel bad at all for them because the Huskies' injuries have been even worse, and Oregon's injuries have been worse. Everybody's injured. That's the problem. Find ways to win or don't go to the tournament.
Stalik, I got to ask you about your one of your favorite teams, Ohio State. Uh, Great win over Wisconsin. Can't follow it up in the Michigan State game.
They might have been a favorite team of mine 30 to 35 years ago, but at the same time, you've still got a big blank up in Tier 1 for the Buckeyes, and instead you're looking at about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 9 losses in there. That's pretty much what UCLA would be had they not gotten the buzzer-beating wins against Illinois and Purdue. As it is, their best wins have come against Wisconsin and UCLA, and the West Virginia game probably would have looked a little more significant had the Mountaineers managed to not slide themselves. They still have the USC win that's in their back pocket, but now with the Trojans starting to slip, now the game at Iowa looks even more critical because that's the Buckeyes' last chance at a true road win against a tournament team, because otherwise you're going to have to pick off a number of wins in the Big Ten tournament. Wins against Purdue and Indiana, they might be enough as long as they don't do anything stupid against the Nittany Lions, but we'll see what happens for the Big Ten tournament in a couple weeks.
Yeah, Titel, how about one of the hotter teams in the Big Ten? Way down here in 12th place, but the Gophers?
I mean, I'll give you a few seconds on them. I can't say that they're going anywhere with a 13 and 14 overall record, but certainly beating your Rutgers team and the Ducks by double digits back to back is nice. Do I think they're going to lose by 40 at Michigan? Hell yes, but like we'll see.
Uh, Let me see. Was there someone else want to discuss also, Titel, or did we nail that?
I mean, Joby did very well with Michigan. I'll just give you my quick
Okay.
thoughts on Yaxel Lendenborg because his development is amazing. So in high school, he would play video games at times up to 19 hours per day. And no, I don't know how that math works out. And he only played 11 games on the basketball court as a senior. So that's why he had to start his college career at Arizona Western. He was an NJCAA All-American, then a two-time All-American first-team player at UAB. Now he's probably going to be an All-American this year with the Wolverines and become a first-round pick in the NBA draft. So kids, play those video games because it works out.
Yeah.
Okay.
Would that be Xbox and Nintendo Switch? You're going to have to be a little more specific.
I don't know. I just get drunk and play video games, and I have a feeling I'm going to be in the NBA one day.
Uh, let's just
Just glad the buzzer isn't.
I guess let's just move on here. Joby, the upcoming schedule of the Big Ten. We already mentioned the USC UCLA game, but interesting Ohio State Iowa game, huge Michigan
Rutgers,
State.
Maryland. That's just jumping out at me. No.
I'm putting
Michigan,
the
Illinois. Yeah, Friday night. I mentioned last week. Yeah, the Friday night just shellacking that came down. I don't think we're going to have a Friday night shellacking this week. I think we're just going to have a great basketball game.
Oh,
Joby,
how much does it? Yeah.
I was going to say, a pair of games on Sunday. Indiana hosting Michigan State, Ohio State hosting Purdue. Uh, Teams that need those wins if they want to make the first.
Really, really need them. Ohio State needs that win and then some, and then some. Indiana really needs that one too. I really think that those are. I think Indiana's straddling the bubble. I can't remember if we selected them last night or not. I think we did, but not by much.
First
Uh,
four.
yeah, and they need that one. I mean, that is a pivotal game. They need to have a huge sense of urgency coming into that game. It's not going to be an easy one to win, even though they're at home. And if they don't win it, they're in real trouble.
And don't forget Rutgers and Maryland on Sunday because you got huge NIL draft implications again.
Uh, let's go to the Big East. And Titel, since I screwed up which team I was going to on for the Big Ten, I'll let you start off the Big East and maybe let's talk right about that Creighton UConn game last Wednesday night.
Just incredible. The story, I believe, after the game was how Josh Dix, the Creighton guard, had the great game after losing his mother, I think earlier this season. I forget if it was cancer or some other diagnosis, but just an amazing story of overcoming obstacles and resilience because I don't see how anybody in their right mind could pick Creighton, even at home, even if UConn's missing a couple starters. Great effort and kudos to Dix for not throwing in the towel on the season and like rising to the occasion.
I think as a footnote to what Titel mentioned, they actually found out about that the day that Creighton was at Georgetown. McDermott didn't announce it during the post-game press conference, but he did reference it during Creighton's post-game radio show that night. So I think that was about a week and a half to 2 weeks ago, where sadly his mother did pass away.
Uh, Rocco, somehow Seton Hall stays on everybody's board, just like at the bottom of it, like eighth out, ninth out. Thought it was done and over with when they lose the ball, but they bounce back with the Georgetown win. Should we write Seton Hall off or not? I guess that's the question.
It's just one of those things where there's a big drop off with the teams that should be on the bubble and then the next cut of teams. And Seton Hall headlines that next cut of teams. It's just a weird year where these conferences are pretty defined, especially the Power Five. But the other reason I think they're on the board is they get to play at UConn this Saturday, and they also host St. John still. And so part of the exercise is looking at the remaining schedule. And although there'll be severe underdogs this Saturday, it's still a swing of the bat. I don't know if they're going to make any contact, but if they do, changes everything, right? They do have some good wins earlier this year. They've been mediocre in the league. They're probably not going anywhere, but we have to take them seriously until it's over. That's why you, Chad, are the master of the Survivor board. Survival board.
Yeah,
Survival board up top there, yes.
it's up
Uh,
there.
Big game this week. Joby, huge game on
Yeah.
not only the Seton Hall UConn game, but how about this Villanova St. John's game on Saturday? A chance for Villanova to, I think Villanova's there already, but to
Yeah,
just really
Villanova's in. And actually, Villanova has taken, they have been the consistent player in the Big East that was kind of needed. However, they don't have a win against a protected seed. And the Big East, only gives you one and a half. I think St. John's is probably on the 5 line. And so Villanova can really improve their resume, obviously, with a win over UConn. But even without it, you see, I don't think there's a lot of pressure here. It's an all positive. You lose to UConn. I don't think it
St.
drops
John's.
out of the top half of the field.
No, I don't either.
So it's kind of it's a nice place to be if you're Villanova. There's a lot to gain, but not a lot to lose. And so and hey, hopefully it'll be a good game. Unfortunately, I do think UConn sees that 1 seed now, and Mr. Singer hopes, I think that they will be very focused the rest of the year and take care of business, except maybe an outstanding St. John's performance in the tournament.
Griggs, out west, the West Coast Conference. Gonzaga got a pair of wins.
Yep.
St. Mary's got a pair of wins. Santa Clara got a win. I think they only played one game this week. But
Yeah,
they're trying to hold serve.
they did hold serve. St. Mary's went to Seattle. Seattle's, despite being in the bottom half of the standings, has really battled some teams. They gave Gonzaga a massive battle earlier in the year. Almost pulled the upset here against St. Mary's. So I guess kudos to them for showing out. But how I think if there's going to be a story this week, since it's a week where it was pretty much holding serve, it's how close did St. Mary's come to really shooting themselves, not in the foot, but in the face.
Yeah.
They got that win though, and
Yeah.
Rocco. This is the week in the West Coast Conference. Santa Clara at St. Mary's, Portland at Gonzaga, in a revenge game for believe it or not, and then Gonzaga at St. Mary's on Saturday.
No doubt. Well, St. Mary's has both games at home and really strong chances to win. It's going to be rowdy at both games. I'll be there Wednesday. Can't wait.
Awesome.
Such a big game for the WCC bracket Wednesday night. If Santa Clara wins, they lock themselves into a bye as long as they don't slip up. Actually, they can still slip up if they win that Wednesday game because they'll have the tiebreaker with a sweep over St. Mary's. Gonzaga in great shape to earn the 1 seed in that case as well. I think Gonzaga has the tiebreaker over St. Mary's even if St. Mary's wins on Saturday. So really, St. Mary's has a lot on the line. They're looking at a first trip to a weekend WCC tournament game in 5 years. Not since BYU left the league have they had to play on the weekend. And it would be very different for Santa Clara to not have to play till Monday. So really, really big chance here to shake things up in that bracket. Otherwise, if St. Mary's wins both, we're kind of just looking at the same movie again.
I do like how the WCC ends up with an old school NBA matchup with the San Diego Clippers traveling to the Portland Trailblazers. Oh, wait.
By the way, that is the end of the WCC season on the screen there. They finish next Saturday.
Yeah.
But
And Steve Lavin is gone. I don't know if you covered that yet, but
Yeah.
happy trails to Steve.
Yeah, kind of. He's had some success in his career. I really expected him to do better at San Diego than what he did. Certainly wish him the best. I'm not a fan of most coaches personally, but he's one of the good guys. Maybe that's his problem.
Well, I think there was a problem when he got the job. He goes down as the worst Torero coach in history, and he had a
What a
problem with.
distinction.
He did have a problem with showing up to work on time. So I love him as an announcer, and he's a really nice guy. But he was a
Yeah,
horrible coach there, and he brought the program backwards.
yeah. Well, I don't show. I mean, I avoid that problem. I just don't have a job.
guys, it's one of our
Well, he'll
favorite
join you.
times.
He will join you.
Yeah,
It's time for one of our favorite times of the show, The Joby Fortson Mountain West section. Go ahead, Joby.
You guys are insane to have New Mexico in the field. Just leave
I have
it.
them on the 9 line.
I'll just
Moving
leave
up.
it at that. I think you're fooling yourselves. I mean, I know you're not trying to guess the committee, but you are fooling yourselves, in my opinion, as Sticks would say. Uh, Utah State, even with their loss, Utah State is in this field. I will be the first to admit it. You almost can lock them up. Are they locked up in the survival board chat? I did not check it in advance.
Not quite.
Not yet.
Yeah, but Utah State has done what they need to do. I think they probably could still, they're still in that 8-9 range, even with that mess, and could play to the 7. Because Nevada, Nevada on paper, is still in the top 75. So so you're still dealing with tiers 1 and 2 involved. So, when you're dealing with a home and away. So I think Utah State's fine. But the others, ooh, I don't know, guys. What are we allotting New Mexico for beating? If the Mountain West were eligible for stallings, I don't think anyone would come close to Air Force on the incompetence
They
level.
they are eligible for stallings. Air Forces, aren't they?
No, they're
No,
not a power conference.
if we're talking all the time about the big bottom of the Big Ten or et cetera, Air Force, there, I haven't seen a team from a conference, except maybe some of those San Jose State teams from a few years ago, pre Tim Miles. Don't worry, Griggs. This Air Force team is awful. So I mean, I
Yeah.
think New Mexico's net and WAB went down afterwards, and I don't blame. I'm not hating on New Mexico for that. It's just unfortunate they have to play them.
Yeah,
But
yeah. The other story in the conference, San Diego State had been trending up 0-2 week, including a really bad loss to Colorado State.
yeah.
Um,
And
and
that just
the
goes to
home
show
loss to the
you,
Lobes, it was bad for San Diego
yeah,
State.
well, that just goes to show you how strong Grand Canyon and Colorado State are and why I think this conference could get 5 or 6 teams in.
Not much else to discuss there. Let's take a quick look at the upcoming schedule. Utah State's games at San Diego State, hosting Grand Canyon. The team
Yeah.
at San Diego State looked a lot better about a week ago, week before we saw what San Diego State did this week. New
Big one for
Mexico,
New Mexico tomorrow. If they are they are fringe bubble, regardless of what side of it they're on, they need to win that one.
Yep.
Rocco over in the A10. Game of the season was Friday night. St. Louis
It was a
fought with
great
VCU
game.
as always.
Yeah, and a nice fight at the
Literally.
end there.
Which made the score look a little more respectable after about 8 technical free throws.
That's a good point. Yeah, that
Yeah,
actually made a little dent in the final metric movement. But St. Louis, man, unbelievable team. They were down 14 in the first half. Closed the first half strong, which is always important. Came out of the second half a whole different ball club, and another amazing sellout crowd on a Friday night. Fortunately, got to experience that a couple weeks ago against Dayton. Now the even bigger game here over VCU, despite the Dayton game being a bigger rivalry, of course. And yeah, this is just a balanced team. They can beat you in a million ways. Robbie Avila didn't even have that great of a game. He only took 8 shots. But you got guys like Amari McCautry in the middle, Quentin Jones, a ball player, Sharma and Thames come off the bench. I mean, these guys are deep and loaded. I'm excited hopefully they don't have any more toe stubbings because they did lose to Rhode Island last week.
Yeah,
they
bad loss
did.
on them.
But I think that was, if there's such a thing, and I hate to use this term, but if there's such a thing as a law of averages lost, that's what it was. Einstein's a genius, but if you give him 1,000 math problems, he's going to trip up on one of them. I just think it was just one of those games where, you know,
That's a great one.
yeah. Well, I mean, if
And
you
then
give,
Rhode Island proceeds to go ahead and just go lose to LaSalle. Why not?
yeah. Oh, it was. I mean, I'm not saying it wasn't. It was just a boneheaded loss, but
All right.
don't we have to give everybody at least one mulligan? I mean, and
Well,
that was
since
it.
the SEC gets 1,000 mulligans, I
Yeah,
would say yes. I would
yeah.
definitely say yes.
And that was theirs. I think they went out through the A10 tournament and win the A10 tournament. This is a legit top 20 caliber team, regardless
Yeah.
of the metrics or anything like that. There are not 20 teams that are better than they are, and they're better than everyone else in the A10, not the Big Ten, but the
Okay.
A10, whether they're at home or on the road or on a neutral floor. I think they went out through the conference tournament.
Titel, how about VCU? Do you think this team can make it a two-bid A10 if they can win these last three games, maybe get to SLU in the championship game of the A10 tournament?
If they beat SLU or lose to SLU.
Well, if they beat SLU, they're in.
Correct.
Yeah,
And I think it becomes a two bid league. If not, then not. They're close, so it's worth discussing. But Webb says no, J&G says no, so I say no.
None of them are that far off. You can get a nice win at Dayton, a decent home win over George Mason still, plus maybe a Dayton or a George Mason again in the A10 semis.
If any of the bracketologists want to overrule me, go right ahead.
No, no.
Thank you.
And the reason why is because to make jumps up the chart, so to speak, you don't need to just beat a NIT level Dayton team. You need to beat teams in the field. You need to beat SLU. And unfortunately for VCU, that did not happen. It did not happen by a big margin. The fight at the end, as you well point out, that wasn't close. And you're right, St. Louis, that's a really good team. And that is, I will, if St. Louis does what they should be able to do and what we've seen from them, and they do not get white jerseys in the first round, then somebody's got some splaining to do. Some major. I think they should even get out of the 8-9 game right at this minute. And if they run the table, six seed could be as
I
high,
agree, Joby.
could be as high of where I think they will wind up legitimately, because I think their metrics, kind of show that. Look at their metrics across the board, mid 20s. That's 6-7. And if you do what they should do, those metrics will improve just ever so slightly to be even more ensconced on the sixth line. So we'll see. But and I think I have faith that the committee will look at that.
Quick note here: St. Louis this week at Dayton in the Arch Baron Cup round two tomorrow
Yeah.
night, and hosting Duquesne. But Stalika, let me go to you for the last team of the night. You being our Ohio guy, Miami, Ohio, still in the top 25, still undefeated. Amazingly slipped by 2 spots in the Coaches Bowl. I can't figure that out, but uh, but there they are, and
That's the coaches poll, but in the
the
AP
Coaches
they
Bowl,
did
the coaches
jump a little
Coaches
bit up
Bowl.
to number 21.
They
But if
win
you
at
want to talk,
UMass. They beat Bowling Green this week.
yeah, we talked about UMass being a potential spoiler for the Red Hawks here, but unfortunately, I think like Buffalo a couple weeks earlier, Miami had a few lessons they learned themselves and were able to get a little more comfortable victory margin the second time around. And when the Bowling Green game came up, their penultimate game at Millett Hall for the year, they end up beating the Falcons by 14 points, and now they look forward to not stepping on any Legos as they take on two of the three directional Michigan schools this week as they go to Ypsilanti tomorrow night and head to Kalamazoo Friday night.
Yeah, Rocco. It's two of the worst teams in the MAC this week, but they're both on the road, and they're
Yeah.
both these two teams aren't even going to make the back tournament. This is their Super Bowl for both these teams now.
Well, it's more than a Super Bowl because they're just trying to qualify for the conference tournament, which they're each at least one game out. They need the win to get into contention. So we'll see what
I don't
kind of
think they can. I don't think either one is actually going to make it based on the numbers. They could actually both be eliminated this week. So
they could
Yeah.
both be eliminated this week, but a win
yeah.
over number one could shake things
If they
up.
lose with losses, they could be eliminated. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just saying there's more than one reason to be motivated.
Mhm.
Be on SportsCenter and help your chances of making it to Cleveland. But I do think Miami, Ohio, we always have to look at worst case scenario. So happy to answer that question. But if you're watching these games, man, these guys are getting better by the
They are.
performance. It's been off. They're finally playing some defense now, and they're just as good offensively. And I'm excited to see where it goes. I think just the fact that they're so connected and they play so well together, and they've really just bought into taking it one game at a time. I honestly think they're going to finish undefeated, both
I do
in the
too.
regular. I think they're going to win the whole thing because the whole motivation, not the whole NCAA, but the whole MAC, all the MAC championships that are available. I think they win all those because the whole theme of the summer was losing to Akron by two in a heartbreaking MAC title game last year. So even if they finish this regular season perfect, once they get to Cleveland, they are plenty motivated to go get that title. They cannot wait to prove they're better than Akron again, and they're going to be fired up for that tournament. And they'll also feel like a load's off their shoulder. Like if they only have one loss at the end, they're probably getting in, and they might even play even more loose in Cleveland.
What?
Rocco and John, the question that comes up, you
Yeah,
know, I personally, it's not what I think, it's what we think the committee thinks.
yeah,
I think a two-loss Miami of Ohio should get in at large, and I mean, no brainer for me. But
I agree
I
with that.
worry looking at the numbers. I do worry, plain and simple, for real life.
Yeah, I worry about the two loss scenario where they don't make the finals. That's my biggest fear.
A
If they
loss to Akron,
lose,
you're right. A loss to Akron's a tier two loss.
right.
That's
Or
not
even
a
Kent State. I can live with a Kent State loss in the finals too. But I think if they lose in the semis or the opener, that's going to be really sweaty.
so like an Ohio followed by a Bowling Green or something. Yeah.
Yeah, I think they would open with Buffalo right now
Buffalo. Yeah.
or UMass.
Mhm.
But yeah, otherwise they like John's been talking about in the chat, they have a good path to get to 29 D1 wins if they get to the finals. I think if they get that, they've probably got the stamp to go through. But obviously, you lose early, you don't get those wins. So I just don't want to give the committee any reasons to leave them out. That's my goal.
Yeah.
I agree with you. Any two-loss scenario, I still think they belong. It's just what will the committee do would be the scary part.
John, what are your thoughts?
As Chad and all of you are well aware, I believe in the 29 is the magic number theory. So I'm telling you, if they win the two this week on the road against horrible teams, I think I would lock them, even if they finish 29-3 and lose in their opener in the MAC tourney, which I understand if you guys feel otherwise and the strength of schedule is atrocious and all that stuff. I believe in the 29 win theory because that's what has worked for the entirety of the 29 win teams ever.
I'd
And I think
really,
another
John,
wild card is you also have to have 29 Division One wins. As it is right now, they would be 24 to know for official purposes of the selection committee.
Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah. I was going to ask you, do you change? Did you mind change that 29 thing when we say you really have three throwaway wins there against non D1 teams?
We'll see.
Uh,
Sadly, they also threw away one of their players in one of those non-D1 wins, but it hasn't
Yeah,
hurt the Red Hawks yet.
it hasn't. And I
okay,
mean, to lose a
well,
key player and still improve
Well,
like that.
they have an extra coach now. He's been a great player coach. He's super
Yeah.
involved on the sidelines if you watch the games.
Mm.
let's jump over to final thoughts here. Tytel, I'm going to start with you because I know you need the screen share.
So my final thought is going to be about Ruben Shinyelu, who we already talked about during the Florida discussion, but he was a big reason the biggest reason the Gators won it all last year was their NBA future backcourt of Walter Clayton Jr., Will Richard, Elijah Martin. This year, the focus is on the front court, Thomas Houck, Alex Condon, and this guy, Ruben Shinyelu. I was trying to find a photo of him getting a rebound because that's what he does, and it was hard. This is the best I could do. For those of you unfamiliar with this story, it's incredible. Born in a small village in Nigeria, did not even start playing basketball until he was a teenager. Started out at Washington State, only played 14 minutes a game off the bench. Transferred all the way across the country to Florida last year. Became the fifth player in school history to start 40 games. Averaged about 6.7 boards a game in under 19 minutes a game. This year, as a returning starter, he's scoring 12 points a game. He's leading the nation in rebounding despite playing just 24 minutes a game. And his bio says his favorite food is Oho soup. But if you ask me what my favorite sandwich is, I would say a Reuben.
Oh,
Oh,
I'll pull this down here. Joby.
uh, I'm gonna and Rocco, I would love your opinion to jump on this as well. Um, when I look at the NCAA tournament bubble, I see right now 6 teams that all reside in the Mountain or Pacific time zone for basically 3 spots. And they're for two from 2 to 3 conferences. Yeah. New Mexico, San Diego State out of the Mountain West. I know we discussed San Diego State probably dropping. UCLA, USC out of the Big Ten, and Santa Clara, St. Mary's. And yeah, I do think unless they win this week, St. Mary's is in that discussion. Seeing them as a 9 on bracket matrix blows my mind. I think it's wrong. Um, I think only 3 of those teams make it. You know, I would say right now it's UCLA and the 2 WCC schools. Um, the reason why I say that is go everybody should go to hoopshd.com and check on the tournament selection committee members. There are only 2 selection of the 12 that reside in either the Mountain or West or Pacific time zones. The WCC commissioner, notice I said 2 WCC schools. Um, I don't think the Minnesota athletic director is going to fight for USC or UCLA per se more than Ohio State. I don't. Those guys are newbies. I've seen it in the ACC world. Not saying that it will be a conscious choice, but I could definitely see Ohio State getting more love in a Big Ten world with everybody fighting for 1 or 2 spots. And there is no Mountain West presence. The Big Sky is the only other conference that's represented, which I don't, besides front rangy oriented things, I don't think they really have affiliation there. So I think I think we have to be very conscious because as Bubba Cunningham, yes, showed last year, I think there is some at least subtle bias, and we're going to be facing that this year. And unfortunately, for some of the Western schools, I think they might even unfairly. I mean, you've got more people like me towards the Mountain West sitting in that room than those like David or Rocco. So that's one thing to look out for. And I'm really looking forward to the WCC this week. It's going to be a fun week. And you know what? There's a part of me who wants St. Mary's to get a win because without it, I don't see how they do it, but at least they justify their presence with a tournament win. And that'd make things a lot easier, to be very honest. And go into my conspiracy theory with the WCC commissioner being on the committee and able to get both Santa Clara and St. Mary's in.
Rocco, I'll let you respond to any other final thoughts.
Yeah, well, I just think that those 3 teams are just the better teams anyway. This is the deepest Santa Clara team I've seen, and they've had some really good teams these last 10 years under Herb, especially the last 5 years. Obviously, NBA champion Jalen Williams speaks to that, and Podziemski's still playing here for the Warriors, and they'll have more pros coming off of this team. So it's been awesome to see. 14-2 is amazing for them in this league. The league's a little deeper. Obviously, the middle got really mucky, but Pacific's been very tough, and I'm surprised they didn't break through against any of the top 3. They were beating Gonzaga in the second half the other night in the Kennel. So interested to see what Pacific does in the WCC tournament. And I will just say, just maybe it's because we've been trained over and over and over again. We're like dogs now, but the chances of St. Mary's losing both of these games at home are slim to none, at least from a historical standpoint. And this is I mean, a very, very good St. Mary's team. They just don't have the opportunities. They've won 17 games in the top 3 quadrants because they schedule hard. They beat almost all those teams. They just didn't get the tournament level win. I think that changes this week. I don't know which one they'll beat, or they might beat both. It won't surprise me if they beat both. And UCLA's got talent. But I still think they need a road win at some point. Maybe it just has to be the run at USC across town, but we'll see how that finishes up. I would agree that I have my concerns on USC, and I don't know if I can trust Cal to rip off 4 wins in a row. It feels like a slip up, at least at Wake Forest down the stretch, is likely, just because they haven't been able to put that many wins together throughout the season. And then the last team is New Mexico. That's a team I do like and I do believe in, but I get it in the Mountain West. Any slip ups are just going to hurt. It's hard to accumulate a net gain over the remaining schedule. So we'll see how it goes for the Lobos. In general, I like the way they play, though. They have a very good road record. The win at VCU, them and St. Louis, the only teams in the country to win at VCU all season long. Winning at Grand Canyon is very hard. Colorado State's a great environment. They went there and won. I'm really impressed with New Mexico. But we'll see what happens. They obviously have to own that New Mexico State loss. And I guess I'll just use that as my final thought. I'm also excited for, that Utah State San Diego State game is actually for first place, as bad as the Aztecs were last week. So Aztecs could still win and earn the number one seed in the Mountain West tournament. Don't forget that.
Absolutely. Stalika.
I'll keep this a little bit briefer. Now, a couple weeks ago, we had Winter Storm Rocco that had a bunch of schedule disruptions throughout the country, and it took about a week and a half to get everyone back up to speed. Now, you look at this weekend when the blizzard of 26 hit anywhere from the new coast of New Jersey up to New England. There's only been a couple games I could think of that are going to be disrupted, and they're going to be games that are nowhere near the bubble. Although one will have Stallings implications, and that's going to be Wake going up to BC. The only other one is going to be Xavier and Providence, which both of the games got moved to Wednesday.
And you'll be there, Stalika, for the Xavier Providence game, correct?
Yep, I had to play a little bit of travel agent, but I will be on my way tomorrow.
Woohoo.
Oh, travel safe, please. It's
Yeah.
rough here in the Northeast.
Yep.
Griggs, I would.
All right, it's my turn.
1 second though, Griggs. Before that, I just wanted to remind everybody about some of the great things we have on the website.
What?
Did
What
you
about my
want to
final
turn?
thought?
Oh, well, we don't need to turn out. Take a look here. We've got the J&G ratings that we're talking about up here. We've got that survival board up here that we talked about. We got all the conference tournament brackets. We got all the team sheets that we've been looking at. The selection committee list that Joby referenced. There they are. Tim Wistrell and Stu Jackson talking about them. So there's a lot of great stuff on this site. And
Yeah, real good stuff.
and that's about it for tonight, everybody.
Well,
So I do want
anyway, what about my final thought?
Sorry, Griggs, we're out of time. On
What the
behalf
hell?
of David Griggs, John Titel, Joby Fortune, Griggs, you tried to sell vitamins for, I don't know what you tried to sell last night. You're done.
Children's vitamins.
They weren't even chewables.
John Titel, David Griggs, Rocco Miller from Bracteria.org, Joey Fortson, John Sleek. I'm Chad Sherwood. Thanks for joining us. We'll be back again Wednesday night with Under the Radar, Sunday night with a bracket rundown show, next Monday night with another Hoops HD report, and also starting Sunday night and Monday night as part of those shows and continuing on every night thereafter. It is going to be Championship Week time. We'll be doing Championship Week video notebooks, an insane amount of content coming up beginning on Sunday night. Till then, just one more Under the Radar. Talk to you again real soon.